against the Briggs Initiative that allows homosexuals to be sacked, against laws that imprison and persecute gays and lesbians. We too will parade on the streets!
I'm Vance Sebastian, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge Season 8, Episode 30 Entertainment Review. Baz, now our thoughts and reviews of Riot, the tale of the Australian gay Mardi Gras. And we'll explore how it relates to queer life, its meanings, as well as its as long as... Take two. We'll be discussing how it relates to queer life, as well as discussing its strengths and flaws. So, now that I've made you giggle, Baz, what did you think?
Well, first off, we will be having this on Rote Reactions. Albert and I watched this, which is one of the reasons why I recommended it for us to do a review on. So look for that. Also know that some of these don't quite make the grade, even though I edit the heck out of them for YouTube. So sometimes they become Patreon exclusive. So if you want to see, especially Albert's reactions, because a lot of the movies I'm showing him and a lot of TV series that we're doing, he's never seen before. So they are first time reactions for him. So it's kind of fun. You know, I kind of know the stories and what's going to happen, but I also know I try to gather some background information to give him about each one that we do. And Riot is one of the ones that we did do. It's not out yet, but I'm working on it and it should be out shortly. So yeah, I mean, excellent.
The official tagline for this: a group of people are stuck in a fight against the law who has paused the decision to decriminalize homosexuality. They decide to protest against the authority and bring in a change. Specifically taking place between the years of 1972 to 1978, the movie is a mostly accurate, slightly dramatized version of events, filmed documentary style. Yeah, I had some thoughts.
Go ahead. Good.
One, I was not expecting sort of the leader of the movement to be a communist. That caught me off guard. The other thing that really highlighted for me that I've seen in other areas relating to social justice is how everybody digs in on their own personal issue, and it makes it really hard for people to work together. And this movie really
That was emblematic, though, of how it began.
It really was. But this movie really highlighted the differences between women's rights movements, lesbians, the communists, the gay party boys. They were all represented, and they all had their take, and it made it really hard for them to work together. Mm-hmm. There's a lesson in that, folks.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is that I think part of it is just as a little side conversation here. Mm-hmm. I think part of it is we as a community tend to think it's a pie,
right?
And that if we give space to someone, it's taking space from us. It's not. You know,
right?
There's no pie here. Right. We could all be at the table, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm. My other major takeaway, Lance, the central figure, became his fight. And that's a hard thing to understand. But pieces of his life started being harder and harder for him to relate to, like a boyfriend, even just his actual family, because he became the fight for rights. And that was hard. I mean, it's not hard to watch. It was emotionally one of those, I felt for him, because mm-hmm. that struggle was real, 100% real, and it ate away at him.
Yeah, well, I mean, oppression eats away at you, and you get to a point where you're militantism over something because you know it's a wrong, mm-hmm. and you become desperate to right it. That, you know, it's if you're all in, you're all in, and the sacrifice that can happen, you've got to be prepared to take it, and that's kind of an overriding theme in this thing.
Yeah,
you know, the lesbian couple who actually has a child that they're fighting for. You know, eventually, you know, things work out, but it's something that is a struggle that they have to fight, that the courts are looking at them under a magnifying glass. And so every little thing that they do to promote the rights cause and the movement forward has a bearing on whether or not they will be able to bring the child into their relationship. So
right.
it's kind of a very, very touching. I think it was really well done. I love the
Mhm.
choice of film stock. I love the choice
Yes.
of the color palette. Man, it slapped you in the 70s. I mean, the music choices, everything about it was spot on. Art direction was through the roof on this one,
Hmm.
as well as cinematography. It really immersed you in that moment, in that era. At least,
Hmm.
for someone like me who grew up in it too, so I get, even though it's Australia, there were a lot of commonalities that I could easily identify with and go, yep, I remember that.
Hmm.
So
Indeed. Let's see. This film was released in 2018. As of the release of the film, uh, their Mardi Gras / Gay Pride Parade has been ongoing without missing a year.
uh, and it's interesting saying they call it a Mardi Gras because it is during Mardi Gras season, and
Hmm.
because they're in the southern hemisphere, their summer is our winter. So it's always, and in fact, when we had Kevin Clare earlier in the year, he was talking about their pride coming up, and Mardi Gras was happening, and he was showing us the brilliant freaking book that you get. I'm like, wait, you guys get a yearbook?
That was World Pride though.
Oh yeah, that was World Pride. That's right. You're right.
That
Right.
was World Pride.
Okay, I stand corrected. But yeah, I mean, I just, but it was interesting too because they showed like a modern day at the beginning. They show a modern day Mardi
Hmm.
Gras and what it now has become, and then they take you back
Yep.
to the evolution of that. And I like that whole dichotomy that you can see where it ends up. But I think that makes it that much more powerful when shit really hits the fan in the very first one.
Right. Um, while we encourage all of you to watch this film for an understanding of how far we've come and how far we have to go on our rights, I will say there are a couple trigger warnings. There's an attempted suicide, there's a rape, and there's a lot of police brutality, as this community is fighting for its right to just exist.
Real world people.
Real world.
Yeah, they didn't pull punches, which is
Nope.
one of the reasons why I liked it so much. Because
Hmm.
unlike a lot of films who tend to tell our stories, um, and this points out to The Stroll, which we just did a review of. It's when we tell stories the way that we need to tell them, and you can tell this had a real strong influence from the queer voices that were present in it. The fact that they show the actual people
Yes.
in the end is really touching. It lends a lot of credence and a lot of gravitas to the whole movie, and I really, really loved that they did that to give you a solid founding in. And it was amazing how some of them looked exactly like the person who they were
I know the
portraying. It
casting
was,
was,
I was like, child.
yeah.
It's almost like, did they go back and find someone who was, I mean, yeah, it was, the casting was spot on. It was
Mhm.
a brilliant, brilliant production. And I don't know if it was necessarily an indie. I don't know how the Australian film thing
Yeah, there was
works.
some it looked like there were it looked like, and I'm going to preface this by just saying from the credits, it looked like there was some Australian government money, but like granted or something to make for the making of this film. So
Yeah.
again, another government who actually believes in the arts.
Yeah. It's a thought, people. So what are your numbers?
Yeah, 4.5s across the board with a solid 5 for queer themes presented because the history is important to everyone, and it's one of my passions is knowing your history.
Mine are fives across the board because I think what this film does the best out of a lot of films, you talk about the movie Stonewall that Roland Emmerich made, who is a gay director.
Hmm.
Um, and the problematic, of course, I think people tend to hear rumor mill and they want to chime in to be first to talk about something. And they often talk about shit they don't know. So I feel bad about the whole Stonewall thing. Yes, it had its problems, but there are also some good things about that film that I liked. So I think that this production, it seemed a little bit quieter on that front. I don't know what the reception was in Australia. I tend to think
Yeah.
it was really well because it was well received because it is such a well thought out production. Every aspect, even the continuity moving forward in the timeline, you knew you were moving through the years, but it never felt like, oh wait, I missed a bunch of stuff. What happened
Nope.
here? It unfolded very organically. It was just beautifully executed. And it's become definitely one of my favorite films. So, hey.
Awesome. Anything else?
Look for our reaction when it comes out.
Perfect. All right, folks. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roguepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, or just listening to us babble, like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Follow us on YouTube, hit us on Patreon, and tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye.
And we'll cut that there.
Jay was tweeting. All right.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.